Greetings, rise and shine, brethren. We are the World Global Reset Restoration Network family, comprised of 198 sovereign nations with over 7 billion sovereign principles, being of one mind, one heart, and one spirit, walking together under the divine principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I come to you as a voice in the wilderness to introduce to you a man. No, not just any man, but a man sent by Yah Allah to redeem mankind. Dr. Hindu I.L. Henderson, the Adak Chief Justice of the Universal World Court, and who's also known as Yehoshua Mashiach, the Son of Man. The information that you will be receiving in this and other videos you won't get from anywhere else on the planet. Hear the many truths and fulfillment of the laws, judgments, and sentencings from our Creator, Father Yah, as well as the fulfillment of the true interpretation of the Holy Scriptures and books. Now, without further ado, Dr. Hindu I.L. Henderson with his beloved host, Shelley Bowling.
We do know that this is the U.S. of A. call, the United States call, if they would still, and I know they will, refer to themselves as being the greatest nation on the planet. Even though right now they're still working toward making themselves, as they would say, great again. They find a real peculiar way of making themselves great again. So right now, it seems like the war just keeps on getting bigger and bigger. Larger and larger the war becomes. For now, they're still finding the time to fight one another. Still now they're finding time to somehow come up with a plan to blame one man. They're still trying to blame one man for the entire system that was set up by at least 8 would have been so-called unique and at the same time elite men on the planet. These men were very much nothing more than a group of goons who were working along with Satan, the devil of the planet, to try to create some would-be so-called system whereby they would have classified as being created by them rather than made up by them. They wanted to make themselves out to be creators. They wanted to make themselves be great. They wanted to make themselves be gods. And now, as they have now figured out that they're dead and lying amongst the ruins of those in whom classified themselves to be kings and gods as well. And knowing that someone now has come along to pick their tunes once again and bring everything outside once again to reevaluate it, whereby they would give it another value, and they themselves will lie in their graves with only a few trinkets left, where they will be said to be protecting them, and while they themselves will have those at their doors of their would-be tombs protecting them from the dead, from themselves. So I know those of you who are listening should be able to figure out exactly why we make those statements and say things in that manner. Yes, remember they said that those are the kings of the past, the pharaohs. They were buried. And they were left with those that were to protect them from the dead and usher them past the world of death to some new world in which they themselves would have been able to carry their treasures and start all over again. We do know the entirety of what they were saying will never happen. For a new heaven and a new earth is now being created right here on earth, and there will be no changing of it. Those who try to manipulate it will do nothing more than find their place in eternal death, where hell will be their guard, their keepers. And trust me, hell can protect you from the dead, because hell is the place where the dead reside. And thereby, your protection will be an ever-surrounding security system where you will never be able to get out. And you will remain there for eternity, for an eternal death. Once again, United States of America. Yes, and I still understand that you want to be called that, because you believe that somehow you're going to rise from the ashes. For some reason, you believe that you're going to be great again. For some reason, you believe that you're going to be able to once again place all the people under your would-be oppressive feet, where you're going to somehow be able to tell them that their monetary system has been fixed. You're going to tell them that now currency is not only flowing through one would-be line of currency where you find yourself getting shocked from time to time, but you want them to believe that their currency system is going to be flowing in a manner in which no one will be able to control it. Let me say this to the United States of America's people, those of you who still deem yourself to be citizens of the United States of America. You deem yourself to be an American. Let me help you out. Your world is coming to a close, and either you're going to accept that, and as they would say, and move on. You're going to find yourself dying in the old world of what is known as the U.S. of A., and you will never be able to get out, because it will be deemed another part or another room or another compartment to what will be hell. They are going to prove to you that even what you have set up as you classify to be a Supreme Court, not only does that court system and the law for the rule of law does not work for you, it does not work for any other nation on this planet. Why? Because it was not designed for any other would-be nation on the planet. It was only designed for the nation in which you yourself still have not truly completely set up. You have no nation. And the people in whom that you're now so set to believe that you're controlling and that you're over and that you're presidenting over and that you believe that they have your concern at hand. You must realize that those people have all been under your would-be so-called watch, under your would-be so-called power, under your so-called would-be government. All those people are there, but you must understand they're there by coerce. They're there by threat. They're there because they are oppressed. They're not there because of any would-be so-called would-be small fiber of themselves where they have volunteered. None of them have volunteered to be part of your system. None of them have openly volunteered to any part of your system. No. For the past would-be 240 plus years, they have been nothing more than subjects whereby you have held them captured to a system whereby you set up some 8 men of nothing more than destruction. 8 men who had set out to deplete everything that the whole world had, that they themselves might benefit off the back of the many people of the planet. Again, this is the United Nations call. I want to say to the United Nations, this is the beautiful world in which we are putting together. I use the word world for one purpose and one reason only, and that's because most of the people that are on this planet, that is on the earth, are still referred to it as being some world or some united world, and whereby we have to give them to understand as we go along now that the world is a system. It has nothing to do with this in which we live on that we classify and we know to be the land. So when we say world, we're looking at it from a standpoint of knowing it as a system. Most of the things that we talk about, such as the World Health Organization, we know that we call it that based upon the fact that it is a system and not a universal would-be Earth or universal planet. So we're looking at it from the point of view of being a system. And whereby now we know that all of the systems that has been put together by the different nations now are beginning to fall apart. Many of them have already been disbanded, or should we say they have been done away with, based upon the fact we use this double standard on the planet Earth, whereby some people are able to benefit from it and others they are not. And this double standard now is being put to rest, being destroyed by those of the righteous. But we know that once we have done away with all the double standards on the planet, on Earth, we would then be able to live in harmony, and all of the people of the planet will be able to benefit from everything that has been placed on the earth by the one we all know and now have come to trust and believe, God. With that said, we're even talking about the land for sure, how the land has been taken by many of those around who had nothing to do with the land. They were visitors, foreigners to a land, whereby they did nothing more than find some way of befriending those that were already on the land, and then they did nothing more than by night go in and rape and pillage the land and destroy those in which they deemed to be their friends by way of befriending them to what would have been known as some would-be made-up social site or some social would-be community in which they themselves realized coming from that which was deemed to be a ghetto from the beginning. And I'm talking about that nation and that world that was known as a European world or a so-called would-be European nation. It was always known as a ghetto. And that ghetto was known as a community where it could not come together. And many of the men and women, they died there. Many of the women, they fled that area that they might be able to go other places and find freedom. Just as they would say the explosion upon the United States of America of those that they classified to be the British or those who had come from the UK. The explosion, whereby he even bought musical instruments with them where they would be able to at least play freedom songs to a world in which they themselves were running from. I'm saying that United Nations because now we know that these phrases that have been used in the past have come from a small area, common area, whereby it has been given and the title of such, and giving credit to those who truly had nothing to do with it. And as we look to the United States of America right now as what we all have familiarized ourselves with being said to be a nation or land, we know that that's not its true name. We know that that's not a true area. We know that the men that had found themselves saying that they were founders of it was nothing more than thieves rather than founders. They wasn't those whom would have went there and found themselves doing what they would say Columbus did. He didn't discover anything. Or if at best he would have said within his own self that he had discovered himself, rather than to discover a group of people or a nation of people or a land of people, whereby he would have found himself doing nothing more than going there, being a tourist, and ending up being nothing more than a terrorist. Yes, and as they tried to give the statement to one who is known as nothing more than an oppressor of those in whom he deemed to be his slaves, Thomas Jefferson, he did not write the Constitution of America. He did not write the Declaration of Independence. He knew nothing about it. He was only one of the thieves in which stole it. So he had no true understanding of, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men were created equal. He had no understanding of it, and thereby, for him to even allow it to be placed on paper and thereby given to the 323 million Americans in which they say now exist, United Nations, is a slap in the face to that nation. Because Thomas Jefferson himself knew nothing of being equal. He knew nothing of being that in which would have been classified as a true father to the children in which he himself fathered, to those women in whom he deemed to be nothing more than his slaves, his possessions, his property. And while given the opportunity that he himself was able to at least place his name on one document of so-called marriage, in which he found himself being placed on with another one of his own would have been raised, a white woman whom he still deemed her to be a possession, his property, based upon the fact that his greatest property was a black woman in whom he kept in a chamber just right outside his own personal door. We must realize that to allow ourselves to believe that men of this nature should be those in whom we use as an example of what a free world is, of what we deem to be a world where people come to live together in perfect harmony, we will find ourselves colliding with nothing more than Lucifer himself, in a manner where we will find ourselves being mixed with him and never find ourselves back to a point of getting back to the true God in which created us. We understand what apartheid is, and America right now is exclusive, a nation that can be classified living under apartheid, because there is no freedom in America. For the matter of fact, right now, even the generation of those that classify themselves to be Caucasian and Caucasian white people, they are more oppressed than those that are classified to be the melanated black folks or the African Americans in America. And that's why now you have this protest that's not exclusive, and neither is it what we would deem to be just one-sided. But right now, if we looked into the fact that the United States of America, the majority of it is being destroyed now, not because of blacks protesting, but because of white protesters. The white protesters are beginning to now step forward to bring racism to a higher level of what we would deem to be a war, based upon the fact they're beginning to now realize that they have been lied to by their so-called founding fathers. They've become angry, and you have to consider United Nations, such as I know all the nations are doing the exact same thing. Many of the nations, many of the people that are now in the nations around the universe has to look at the fact that you have been raised by a lying grandfather or a lying grandmother, whereby they told you that you were royalty, they told you that you were free, they told you that you were the owners and the exclusive owners of the land, or you were the exclusive owners of the White House, or you were those that were deemed to be some revolutionists or some would-be civil rights, and whereby you believe that you were the Civil War that saved the world, based upon the fact that you have been placed in a position to be leaders. But at the same time now, having to wake up, realizing that the house that you live in is on the land that you could never own now. It can be very, I would say, disappointing to the members of the so-called would-be inherited family. To inherit a house knowing that you're on the land of someone else is not a great feeling of authority. And knowing that even the Monticello plantation that now has been deemed to be some so-called Thomas Jefferson plantation, to know that he was on a black land, that he was on a land that he could never himself truly purchase. And thereby, that would kind of truly upset even Thomas Jefferson himself. Not because he was not aware of it, it's because that now he would have had someone that would have had recognized it, and they would have brought forth that which he kept in secret. They would have brought it to the forefront and shown that the secret was nothing more than a lie. And this is very upsetting. It will be very upsetting. And that's why now the protests that are happening all over the world are in regards to those lies which were manipulated and told by those so-called founding fathers of the past. And now to know that I would say more than 85% of those founding fathers had also fathered black children. It's almost like a slap in the face to what is known now as child support. It's a slap in the face to something now, like this so-called protective service for children. You cannot protect the service of children. You cannot look and say that child support is for the benefit of the child. When you have allowed so many deadbeat dads of the so-called white world, of Caucasian, European world, you have allowed them to escape their responsibility based upon fathering children in the black neighborhood. Right now, the black neighborhood has just as many of those black children right now with blood flowing through their veins of those gone by and long gone so-called deadbeat fathers of the past, known as some so-called world of the United States of America leadership, president.